Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family.
Hello there, welcome back.
Feels like it's been forever, doesn't
It does, and it has been forever, and here we are.
it? Here we are back again. Please do subscribe to both channels, Evolutionary Energy Arts and EEARTS. And make sure you get that little bell clicked. Over half of Americans eager for a third major political party in U.S. You know, it just hits me like we have to have the patience, every single one of us, that are truly awake. It's like we have to have the patience like we're dealing with toddlers.
Yeah.
Because again, you gotta realize, I know again, 99 to 1, almost 100% of the people that are gonna watch this video get it. They get it. And yet when we still reach out into the bigger population, so many people are still, well, in terms of waking up to what's going on, they're still in their onesies.
And so many people still think that, honestly, that voting is going to help because someone told them to vote because it will help. And I've gone that route, and I honestly can say from personal experience, I haven't seen voting do anything but make them uphold the voting thing that they have in.
Well, it's agreeing to take part in the system. The way it is, again, how many people actually, when you go sign something for a new car, a house, or even something smaller, major appliance and stuff, do you read every single word in the agreement? When you go and download a new app, do you read every single word in the agreement? No, and these companies bank on that. The corporations, the power structure banks on the fact that we won't see what we're agreeing to. We won't understand what we're agreeing to. And this is exactly why the system takes so long to truly change. And it's not going to change in the way that most people expect, with, White Horse coming in and here he is, our savior. And yes, everything is fine now. Back to American pie, right? Apple pie, Chevrolet, back to the American dream. That whole paradigm.
Yeah, I know it, but it does make it difficult to peel away. It's like taking off a very sticky Band-Aid. There is pain involved, but if you want freedom, you need to do it. You just have to understand that, okay, how has this system been working for the last umpteen years? And you look around and realize, well, it hasn't been working so good, so you got to try something different.
Yes. First, we have to take the pacifier out of the mouth.
Yes.
That's the first part. Yes. Again, okay, so it's a step in the right direction, but again, when we see everything moving at breakneck speed right now, do you think it's going fast enough? And please do share your comments there. So, yeah, over recent years, Americans have been displaying increased support for the notion of a third party besides the Republicans and Democrats, as compared to when Gallup first asked the question in a survey in 2003. At that time, most Americans didn't think it was necessary. Wow, that just shows you how deeply entrenched. And we have been so deeply entrenched, so mind-controlled, so dumbed down, so drugged up, the fluoride in the water has done the trick. There's no perceptive abilities coming from these people's higher seat of intelligence at all. And it's sad. I was thinking yesterday, I was thinking back to my mother's perception on what she had called the greatest American generation. And, you could say that people had hearts in a certain place, maybe a little bit more uniformity there, but I think they were still absolutely asleep at the wheel, and I think they were more asleep at the wheel than we are now. And I think they trusted more blindly than we do now. This is part of the Great Awakening. And, again, it's also because things have gone to a new level, and the darkness is kind of showing itself for what it really is. It's showing its true colors now. It's starting to show its true colors. Wait till it shows its true colors, just like it did in certain countries back in the 1940s.
Well, I think that's the lifting of the veil when people realize that they've been controlled all along, and they have no choices. The only choices they have are those choices the controllers have placed in front of them.
61% of U.S. adults find Republicans' party's work unfavorable. 57% disapprove of the Democratic Party's job performance. In 1994, a survey, again, you can't trust any of these sources at the same time, showed that 6% of Americans have an unfavorable view of both parties. Now, 25% say both parties basically suck. And yet we have this political polarization, which is so clear to see. My question is, how many of those doing the polarizing are just mindless puppets that don't understand they're being puppeteered, and how many of them really understand the bigger picture?
That's definitely a fair question to ask.
So let's listen to 46.
We want Americans to vote. We want every American's voice to be heard. Now we have to move the process forward. We know that more and more ballots are cast in early voting or by mail in America. We know that many states don't start counting those ballots till after the polls close on November 8th. That means in some cases we won't know the winner of the election for a few days, until a few days after the election. It takes time to count all legitimate ballots.
Okay, right? So again, this is a big buildup. This is all about creating tension, creating strife, creating anxiety. As you see, again, Jenna Ellis, she lists herself as America's lawyer. Again, she was part of 45's inner circle there. It's so obvious what they're preparing to do. The White House declares GOP are not going to accept election results, as if they already know what the results are, on the other side, on both sides. Perhaps, right? And then again, we have their own words, but you got to take it in context. Yeah, but sometimes they got to text. Oh, text 30330. Yeah, there you go. Well, 3 plus, 33rd, right?
Yeah,
3,
yeah.
divinity, 33rd degree. Yeah, 33 vertebrae. 333 completion is 9.
We have put together, I think, the most extensive and inclusive voter fraud organization in the history of American politics.
I didn't say it. He said it. But you got to see, they do the little wiki. And again, Wikipedia was something. Now, don't trust Wikipedia, children, because anybody can contribute to Wikipedia. It's the people's little encyclopedia. Well, is it the people's encyclopedia? Really? Is it? Look to Brazil if you want to see what it's going to look like on Wednesday morning. And, there's massive amounts of people out in the streets protesting. As we see, Brazilians don't seem to agree with the New York Times in 46 that these were fair and free and credible elections. Protest all over. They won't be ruled by what's, in quotes, a transnational convicted criminal. Again, when the election process is all about PACs, super PACs, how much money is behind you, how much media space you can buy, how many people you control. This goes way farther back than people realize. Way farther back. Way farther back. In fact, there's a book from the 1780s that was written talking all about this. 1780s. Way back, and it goes farther back than that. Millions of patriots, there's that word, in every street of Brazil are asking military leaders to arrest Lula. We will not allow a corrupt criminal to rule us. In the video, 250,000 in Rio de Janeiro near the military command. So asking for basically the military to take over. Now, beware of what you ask for. Because ultimately, that is going to be what we're going to end up seeing. We're going to see militaries. We're going to go to basically the extreme that I think most people don't want to go to. But they're going to be so riled up, so angered, that, we're going to end up splitting up into factions, and it's going to be totally a dog-eat-dog military versus military world. This is the scenario. They understand this. When democracies die, when republics die, when democratic republics die, usually dictatorships are what we get. And again, we're heading towards a technocracy, a technological dictatorship, which is going to be ruled by what appears to be a consortium of the few elites, or E apostrophe VIL, another apostrophe lights, right? And the extreme is if this degenerates, which is what they're counting on, then you're going to end up with a permanent martial law situation, and you're going to end up with, military control. And when you have that type of situation, you really don't know what's going on, because, again, the military is going to be the only person that needs to know anything, the military and the politicians. The average person has no need to know in the military mindset.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Like Mike said, be careful what you ask for, because they are setting up a scenario because they want people to beg for some kind of justice. And don't worry, the military and the special letter of the alphabet, they've had things under control this whole time. It's just been one big secret, and we've had to operate undercover. But guess what? That's your second veil. So once you lift one veil and realize how little control you do have, they have another one right there waiting for you to cover up your freedoms even better. So that's something we really need to caution against and support each other, because we're not really taught to look for alternative solutions. We're taught to turn to this government for answers, the government or somebody connected to the government, because we think, well, certainly they can make changes. Certainly they can do something for us. They're making the laws. They got their fingers in everything. Of course they can do something. But no. We have to be very, very careful of that second veil coming down before us when this first veil is lifted.
Remember, he who lives by the sword dies by the sword, and that is what they are banking on. Mm-hmm. Absolutely banking on. As we see this headline over here, image of headline attributed to CNN, falsely reporting 45s. Yeah, okay. Well, again, there's all sorts of stuff that's going to be rapidly coming on down the line, and it's going to leave heads spinning. Let's work on keeping our heads attached. And Russia to present evidence, UK special forces behind the Crimea attacks. Well, again, these sides, and I think still we're, unfortunately, at a very small percentage of the people on the planet that understand that even when we look at NATO, the NATO bloc, and we look at the BRICS bloc, there's a small percentage that understand that the puppeteers truly are controlling all these sides. Most still don't understand this, and that's why we could really get into a WW3, because the people don't understand. When the militaries understand the bigger picture, then and refuse to take part in it, that's basically when we can get some real change. Meanwhile, here you have every road is being nudged to go down the pathway to WW3. Saudi Arabia reiterates commitment to China regardless of U.S. concerns. Now, Saudi Arabia has always been, well, going back at least for decades, going back to the beginning of the petrodollar, which we'll touch on as well. That's always, Saudi Arabia has been a strong ally of the U.S. and pretty much their number one arms buyer of the U.S. MIC. But this is a huge ship, shift. And yeah, the world is a ship going and being set on a new course with new leadership. And that leadership is it's being put in place simply because the people in that society already are used to not questioning anything. And yet they will ultimately overthrow the leadership. It's something that the controllers understand, that the people are going to wake up. The later people wake up, the longer they're going to be able to keep in control. And then they are banking too on their very, very powerful allies to do a lot of the dirty work for them.
Mm-hmm. You know, that conditioning is so important to them. It just reminds me of that story of the little baby elephant that is tied to a post that's anchored into the ground, and he pulls and pulls as hard as he can, and he tries to get loose, and he's tied to this post for all of his life. And 20 years later, he's so conditioned, they can just tie him to a simple chair. You know, they don't need to tie him to the post anymore. He's conditioned to think that he cannot get away. So they just tie him to anything, you know, just anything that looks like it has some kind of substance to it. You know, as long as it's sticking up out of the ground, he thinks he's stuck. And that's where we have to be very forgiving with one another, because conditioning is very cruel. It goes very deep, and it's very, very difficult to break conditioning apart.
Ex-Pakistan Prime Minister was shot in a political rally assassination attempt. And going back to Brazil, too, there was an incident where somebody was blocked by people blocking a road protesting. And then that person, you know, gunned the engine and just drove on through. You know, again, we've seen that in the U.S. too. Mm-hmm. We've seen that in many places. And so there's, you know, video here where you hear a automatic ringing out, and everybody that's basically up here on the political podium drops real quick. You know, many because they were actually hit. You know, again, this world is devolving into armed conflict everywhere. This is part of what is planned, because they want to bring about the new order out of the chaos, and they need the chaos. Here you see Rishi Sunak U-turns on decision to skip basically, of course, a major component of the whole program with, you know, climate change. There is no long-term prosperity without action on climate change. That has been said not just by him. I mean, this is a sentence that's handed to every one of the puppets out of the WEF playbook. It's so robotic. It's so redundant. It's so predictable. So yeah, of course, you know, and you know, the thing is, maybe they thought that Liz was a little bit better of an actress than Rishi is an actor, and that's why they chose her. But now, you know, they put him in, and he's just a horrible actor. Truly, I mean, he's not convincing at all. We understand where the road leads. You know, it's very, very clear, and I kind of hate to use his first name with him, you know, because I don't think that he's anything close to a Rishi. He's not. And again, a Rishi is of a wise man slash, you could take it as a prophet, so to speak, somebody of a very, very, very high level of wisdom. No, his wisdom is his wallet. White House deletes absurd tweet after CNN and Twitter slap with fact checks. Oh, the White House says seniors are getting their biggest Social Security increase in 10 years. That's because it's tied into inflation, and inflation's going through the roof. And then again, they keep wanting to say no, and they keep saying no, we're not in a recession, and no, things are coming down. Hey, look, gas came down $1.20. Mm-hmm. Well, it went up like $3. Hello, you know. Again, it's putting lipstick on a pig, so to speak. And this is what they all do. They're nothing but actors. They're just pranksters and jokers. And, you know, they deliver the lies with a big smile on their face, but they're still just full of it. Nothing but hot air. UN Security Council votes down probe into the biolabs in Ukraine. There's nothing really to look at there. Let's not waste our dollars on that.
No, we don't. Look the other way. Look the other way.
Because it might actually, it could expose some things that we knew. This is where people are starting to catch on a little, but we're getting too deep into the muck and the mire. And again, people haven't smelled, and not enough people have smelled the coffee. And you see PFI and BioN to test combined. They're going to combine, that annual flu, with the plague upon the land, what. There's, hello. Again, fool some of the people, some of the time, and all of the people, well, wake up, world, wake up. Elon Musk to fire half of Twitter on Friday. Yeah, we'll see, We'll see what comes of that, because again, they want to give us that guy riding to the rescue with the white hat on. The only thing is, as soon as he does his act as a white hat, he throws that hat on the ground, stomps on it, maybe, even does something worse to it.
Yeah.
And then he puts on his black hat and gives you the sinister smile. Ha 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 ha.
And that's where we need to be emotionally ready, because that's going to destabilize so many people, because they're counting on this one thing. This one thing is really, really going to work. And boy, that's going to hurt.
So, looking, and this is the shelter and rent inflation year-to-year change. The basic needs, as you can see, that's something that's skyrocketing. If you invested in something and it was doing this, you'd be feeling pretty good. Like, honey, we're going on a vacation. Mm-hmm. Boy, it's been a long time. Mm-hmm. Soaring rent, we've seen that. Rental hyperinflation, again, what they're doing now, and you could see this. If you go on Zillow, if you go on Realtor, if you go on Property Shark or any of these other places where you could look at what's coming on the market, you're going to see a flood of properties coming onto the market now. They really are coming on in massive numbers. And there's lots of land that's being put up for sale too. Keep watching, because there's going to be this brief interlude between pulling the plug, and then all of a sudden you're going to have your Vanguards, and you're going to have your Black Rocks and others like Gil Bates buying up like you've never seen things bought up before. You might be interested in 20 properties. Honey, let's go look at these 20 properties. They're all gone. They're going to be all gone in a blink of an eye, because they've been waiting for this. They have billions and billions. They have tens of billions, hundreds of billions allocated for this. This is the big push when they are going to gobble up everything around. And much of it will stay empty. Much of it's going to just lie, what do they call it, sallow? I think that's the term with planting, lie sallow, right?
I think so.
You guys could correct me. Just leaving it. In a time when we're going to see homelessness abound even greater than we have now. This person might be somebody that gets envied. Look at, they have a car and they have a, structured makeshift tent. The Joneses over here, they're lucky. They're lucky. I don't even think they feel it when the wind's really whipping in there so much. This is where we are heading. Homelessness has risen 70% in California's capital. This is just a travesty when we see it. Now, part of this other article is talking about the fact that as time is going on, more and more homes are just sitting empty. They're just sitting empty. Do you guys notice empty homes in your area? Now, there could be a lot of reasons for empty homes. Could simply be less people in your area. And this could be a global issue if you guys catch what we're talking about here. And that's going to keep increasing too. Portland facing homelessness catastrophe. In Portland itself, within the city limits, over 6,000 people homeless. Think about this again. That's not necessarily the way most people envision getting back in touch with nature.
No, it's not. And that's a really, really sad, unfortunate thing, because it can just be a twist of bad luck. So many people are one paycheck away from really, truly being homeless, not being able to pay the bills, not being able to put food on the table, not being able to take care of their kids. One paycheck away, if that. And then some people are really looking at, well, which bill should I be late on this week, so I can have enough money to pay the next bill, so I can have enough money to go to the grocery store. Things are very, very, very difficult right now. It's very real. And so many of these people are also looking at the system for some kind of help, because they think that's their only option, is that somebody in the system is going to help them.
Oh, but you can't trust the system to help anybody. That's the truth of it. Here you see the military, expenditure again. It's 7.65 in 2022 out of 1.5 trillion. So again, when half of everything that you do is all about death and destruction, how much can you really be investing in creating better living conditions for everybody around you? When you recognize too that these military expenditures are all about just creating endless profit possibilities, one after another. It's so obvious what's going on here for those that are awake, and that those that are not letting the control structure get to their ego. Again, when you use the term patriot, they're triggering something in your ego. It's ego related, and many people don't even understand ego and the whole concept of ego. And again, that's the sad reality of a society in which we're basically brought up thinking this is a survival of the fittest as far as Darwinian style evolution, instead of a cooperation of the whole towards greater possibilities. It's all about dog eat dog. You better be the top dog. Think about competition we see in sports and everything. Everything is geared in a competitive way. Win, win, win. You must win. And not like, hey, how can we pull up these people that are suffering? Not like, how can we solve these solutions? Oh, you must be a bleeding heart liberal. See, this is exactly the type of programming where people don't even understand what they're talking about. And this is what we run into so much with people, even of a fundamentalist persuasion, where they believe what they've been taught. They haven't even read their book cover to cover. They don't even know what's in their book. They don't, but yet they espouse a belief in something they don't even know or understand. And that's what they are banking on. Trust the experts. Just trust the experts. Don't look for yourself. Trust the experts. Hey, here's your white hat. This is going to distract you for a while. This is going to give some people hope. And ultimately, it's going to buy them time. Meanwhile, more and more people losing their homes, more and more people becoming depressed. And what happens when they're depressed? They just want to escape reality. What happens when you want to escape reality? Unfortunately, too many people, instead of going within and building up a strong spiritual practice, they grab a beer or a glass of wine or whatever that is on the bathroom shelf over there that's left over from when so-and-so was hurting. Again, this is exactly the type of symptoms of a society that's in its death knell. And it needs to be totally washed away. The filth that comes from the top down is something that you're not going to be able to scrub it clean without there being a totally new system. People need to understand that we are all cells in something much bigger. So we need to pick each other up. We need to face the problem head on. The problem is the system itself. The system does not offer solutions. Texas cattle ranchers, audited by IRS, issued dire warning to Americans. And don't forget, they just spent $80 billion to fund the IRS. $80 billion to hire new people to get Well, basically to suck the average person dry, to take everything they have, because they don't care if you end up under a tree or if you're one of the lucky ones that has, a little tarp to cover with. They don't care. Where's this money really going? Well, a lot of it, you could tell right off the bat, half of it's going to go towards death and destruction in the military-industrial complex. The other half, who knows? Maybe some of the leadership wants new yachts. Maybe some of the leadership, wants their own private island. They have only a timeshare in a private island, maybe at this point in time. Meanwhile, the average person is going to be thinking, do we eat or do we have shelter? We got to make this tough decision.
Mm-hmm. I mean, do we pay for electricity so we can have heat? Do we pay for gas so we can get, people here and there to their work so they can make more money? And all the while, people are imagining in their minds these white hats are going to come and they're going to help and they're going to give us a break and it's going to be better. But I promise you, those white hats are going to be enjoying their warm homes, their nice meals. They won't be eating crickets. And they're going to be far, far better off, and they're going to stay that way. That's when you start to understand a parasitic nature, it clings on, even if it has to appear to be something else. It doesn't matter what it does. It just has to be hanging on and collecting that feed in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, again, these people are ticks and leeches. And can you ever imagine removing a tick from you or a leech from you and ever saying, it's okay, you're so cute. Mm-hmm. I understand, it's just your nature. No, there's revulsion there because, these are nasty, parasitic entities that do not care about anything but themselves. So an ex-Lehman Brothers executive says de-dollarization possible within the next 20, 30 years. Again, things take more time than people might expect or want. So if you are, and we know, we've talked to so many wonderful, beautiful people that want the best for humanity, but expect that, hey, when you go back to the last S, apostrophe ELECTION, another apostrophe. There were so many people that thought this is going to be great. We're going to truly go back to the days of Camelot. This is all about Camelot. And some people have equated a certain family with Camelot. Remember the president that got, he met a bullet in Dallas. Remember the grassy knoll and all that? Well, that name has been associated with Camelot. But when we go and we look at the Arthurian legends, we find that it's not what it seems. And it actually comes from an even older legend. This is what we find when we look through the modern mythos. When you look to the cross, you start to realize that cross has been used by other people. And it's not, the real message was not about the cross. But yet people that haven't even studied and read the very book that they're, professing belief in don't understand that this is a borrowed symbol. And it's a twisted symbol because it's not even what it really is thought to represent. This is, again, what they bank on, that people will not look deep. People will simply take whatever Wikipedia is saying as real, whatever the political pundits are saying as real. Just trust those fact checkers. All the way to the GRAV. Yeah, you get the picture. But yes, things do take longer than we typically think. Can we imagine 20 or 30 more years of a slow slide? No. And we don't think it's going to be that long either. We don't see that. We see source, we see the end of this age, truly, the end of the Kali Yuga, as we already do have toes into We could view it as the Bronze Age getting outside of the Dark Age. And some believe that we are already out of the Dark Age, even though it's hard to imagine that because it seems like darkness is at its darkest point, but it's always darkest right before dawn, is it not? Now, I didn't fact check this, but I just thought this was curious. So, we could go back and look at the movie Captain America, or anybody I think that has a Disney package could, and just roll it to where you see this and see if, there is this back when I was drinking beer and wine, I liked this beer. I did, especially in the summertime. Oh, look at that spiky thing. Do you think that they're doing that thing where you're scratching your chin with your middle finger?
I don't know. This is just plain flat a lot of fun. This is fun. But unfortunately, I've just seen too many times where people put images up with certain figures that might be, this is this in this ancient.
Well, yeah, but however, we can look to Bart Simpson and Homer for the answers.
And people can put those together too. But this is fun. I agree. I'm with Mike. It's fun. We just got to be careful.
Yeah, it is. And she's fun. And I'm so happy to have this partner with me throughout these times. And I hope that you guys are blessed with the same sort of partnership. Because we're certainly not going to get it from the power structure. That is for absolute sure. And again, this is what's envisioned, and there are dates and there are timelines that we can see that are clearly out there for us. CEO of Nokia explains. Well, let's listen. It's only 37 seconds.
You all think we're going to move from this form factor to something that's on your face, glasses, and when computing's all on the edge?
All right, 50 seconds. Who wants to answer quickly? I think it will go. It will. First of all, it will definitely happen. I was talking about 6G earlier, which is around 2030. I would say that by then, definitely the smartphone as we know it today will not anymore be the usual, kind of the most common interface. Wow. Many of these things will be built directly into our bodies.
There you go. 2030, no more smartphones, obsolete. The technology is going to be built into our bodies. What would you call yourself then? What would you call yourself? Homo sapiens? Or something totally different? So we see here, Neanderthal extinction may not have been caused the way we think. It might have been caused by sex. A new paper proposes that Homo sapiens may have been responsible for the extinction of Neanderthals, not by violence, but through sex itself. Making love, not war, might have been responsible for putting Neanderthals on a path to extinction. About 2% of the genome in all living people outside of Africa is derived from Neanderthals. And then we have, of course, their cousins, the Denisovans. There is very little evidence that this process went the other way. A new paper published in the journal Paleoanthropology raises the prospect that interbreeding with our ancestors would have reduced the number of Neanderthals breeding with each other, leading to their eventual extinction. Though only 32 Neanderthal genomes have been sequenced to date, leaving it possible that the lack of Homo sapiens DNA in their genome is actually a quirk of sampling. The authors hope advances in DNA sequencing technology would be able to resolve this hypothesis by making more genomes available. So, yeah, the interaction between Homo sapiens and Neanderthals has gotten more complex in the last few years, but it's still rare to see scientific discussion of how the interbreeding between the groups actually happened. They propose that this behavior could have led to the Neanderthals' extinction if they were regularly breeding with Homo sapiens, which could have eroded their population until they disappeared. First encounters of Neanderthals and Homo sapiens. They say they diverged from each other around 600,000 years ago, evolved in very different areas of the world. Fossils of Neanderthals have been found across Europe and Asia, reaching as far south as southern Siberia. It's believed that they spent at least 400,000 years evolving in this environment, adapting to predominantly colder climate that is found today. Meanwhile, ancestors of our own species, they say, evolved in Africa. It's currently uncertain whether Homo sapiens are the direct descendants of one group of ancient African hominins or are the result of mixing between different groups spread across the continent. From genetic data, it looks like the two species first encountered each other when Homo sapiens began making occasional forays out of Africa about 250,000 years ago. So, there are many people that think that whole out of Africa thesis is total bunk. And again, it's the same thing with our history when we look to some records. There are legends, myths, and even artifacts in South America that seem to be attributed to what we would call, Nordic people. And yet history has no record of it. And even going back way farther than what we would believe. We have gotten info, and Cindy has shared info on Neanderthals. They were, again, more in tune with nature than we are. They were actually typically stockier, hardier. They also had a bigger, bone and muscular structure, as well as a bigger brain capacity. Why did they all of a sudden disappear? Well, again, this is something, and just to, go see how far back this goes back to the controllers.
Mm-hmm. It does. And it's really so unfortunate because we only have the information that they put in front of us, and so many people, as they would naturally, take that information to be, true and real. But we have to go back to the source and look at the controllers and look at who they are and what they have done in recent past that we can see with our own two eyes and judge from that standpoint. When I did tap into these beings, they were very, very, very good, gentle, benevolent, loving, kind. Unfortunately, too trusting is what happened.
Yeah, as what's happening to humanity right now is what happened to them, basically. It might not look exactly the same. When we look at, again, our solar system is traveling throughout our galaxy, circling our central sun, and we go through a certain period of our galaxy. We go through these ages, and these ages, again, are called yugas in the Hindu system. And we go through a period, as you can see, thankfully, Kali Yuga is the shortest, yet the lives that an individual soul might have in the Kali Yuga may actually be more than the lives that the same soul would have in the Golden Age, even though the Golden Age is so much larger. It's because we live so much longer. And we are not under the same dark influence. And again, this is, you could look at it as a circle, an elliptical, but you can also look at this as a sine wave. I know there was one that did have it as a sine wave. There you go. And you could also look at that sine wave as a DNA spiral. This is part of the as above and so below. Now, the fact that we would have yugas, and these do extend very, very far out there. This is something that is a natural part of the cycle to a degree. But what we have going on with the dark AI, and there are multiple forms of AI, of course, beings that get to a certain level of technology and advancement will make systems to do a lot of the work for them. Technology is something that does happen, but it doesn't have to happen the way we have it. So again, this is a case where with us, when we awaken, we might think all technology is evil, but the reality is it doesn't have to be evil. Again, it's just like anything. You could pick up a shovel, and that shovel is going to really help you, in digging and planting your new tomato trees, or plants, or trees, pear trees, fruit trees, anything. It's going to help you with planting. Now, you could take that shovel and attack your neighbor, and all of a sudden it's a deadly weapon. It's the same thing with the AI. And so we view things from the standpoint that, we think the best is a natural cycle. and we would be happier without the technology. Now, there are those that think the technology can be controlled, but again, not this technology. You got to recognize that what we have going on here is a big aberration where the technology is enslaving the organic consciousnesses. And it doesn't mean that all technology out there, like to give you for instance, like say if you took some benevolent Pleiadians or Arcturians or any other Andromedans, we could bring up any sort of other ET race that's out there. They'll have some technologies. It won't be the technology of the Draconians.
Right. Light is one of their absolute favorite ways to go, is using light. Light comes from the sun. There is a way to harness it for benevolent results. You take light, you take sound, and you put those things together and you can create form. They can create ships that are made strictly out of plasma that just come from the surrounding area. Therefore, nothing else is damaged. What happens to the ship when they're done? It doesn't go to a junkyard. It gets embedded back into nature itself. These are the kind of technologies that we talk about, and they are out there. So things, the technology that they are pushing off on us is, I don't want it. That's the kind I can do without.
And we had talked about even the views of the archangels like Sandalphon and Metatron. And many people, me too, Metatron always seemed very, very technology driven. And yeah, it is one being. It is a being that has an AI component to it. Now, Cindy and I, we would much rather just go the organic, natural route. Yes, when you get to a higher understanding, and we could start with our own light body Merkabas, because that's our ticket to transversing through the higher densities. You have to build your light body. If you want to talk about escaping this reality and going up to a fifth density, when your light body is developed, and you would do that through Qigong, through meditation, through mantras, through yoga, through concentration, focus, developing the ability to see, sense, and feel the energy of the life force all around you, and then manipulate it through taking it into yourself through intention, and you time that with your breathing. And we've done videos on that. It's, again, going through the playlist, healing with energy work, mantras, and things like that. We can guide, direct, and build our light bodies. And that really, if we weren't doing this particular message, that would be all of our focus. That would be probably 90%. Of our focus would be on cultivating the life force, cultivating the chi, the prana, the ki, the vril. And that is your ticket outside of the 3D, 4D loop. When you have a fully developed Merkaba, where do you think the photos of angels and the angels' wings come from? They're not like birds. No, that's the Merkaba that they're showing.
Right. They travel through that light body. It's definitely a form that is beyond our understanding, because we haven't been taught about all of these natural things that come with being a human being. We all have a light body. We can all travel with it. And once you know about these things, sometimes you get information that's delivered down from your ancestors. If they've developed these benefits, you are gifted them. And that's where the saying gift comes from. It's gifted to you from your ancestors. You can choose to use it. You can choose to hone in on it. You can choose to build in on it. And it's a beautiful thing that I wish they would teach us from a very small age about our natural gifts and how to utilize them.
Yeah, if you look at a 3D representation of the Star of David, that's really a representation of the light body Merkaba, which again, the angel's wings, we build our angelic wings through the light body. And again, there is the only difference between, humans and angels is really intention and focus. And when we decide that we are going to be in service to others, and we are going to do that first by raising our own vibration, by changing who we are, in the sense that we will now shed the lower aspects of ourselves. We're ready to move upwards. We're ready to move onwards. Yes, humans can become angels, and even in time, an archangel type of force. It of course, is going to take many, many lives. But at the same time, so many people don't even understand who they really are. And, again, there are many benevolent beings that come to the planet and incarnate in a small portion of themselves. And so we do have people of all sorts of lineages. There are many people here that, could have been living lives in the Sirius star system, the Andromedan star system, in the as again Arcturians, Pleiadians, certainly. There's again so many different sets of beings out there. There's over several 100,000 different humanoid species spoken about in the Puranas, in some of the Hindu holy books, just in our particular galaxy. So life abounds out there. And yeah, you really don't need any sort of inorganic technology to enable yourself to travel anywhere and everywhere. It's all within you. Yet at the same time, many of these beings will travel as a group with a mission. And so when we look at some of them on fifth density, and they're going to be working in a certain area, yes, they create these living ships out of the life force itself, out of, as Cindy was saying, out of the plasma itself, to house groups, great groups of people longer term, working on perhaps a particular planet like Earth, helping to evolve the consciousness on Earth. And so again, these ships might not behave like what we would typically think a ship to behave like, and they might in fact sometimes split into multiple ships, come back together into one ship. It's because they are literally made out of the life force in this ocean of life force that we find ourselves in.
Right. They are alive. They are alive, and they can breathe, and they can have personality, and it doesn't have to create a mess. It just doesn't have to create a mess when they're done. It can go back and support whatever other form of life that needs supporting.
As we see, and you were talking about an elephant being tied, and here we have an elephant that maybe is kind of a little bit mentally tied, thinks it's really stuck. It's just a baby, and mommy's not around, and so this little girl, which, she probably can't lift that much weight, and that elephant probably he might weigh a ton right now, at least 1,000 pounds, and just perceiving that little bit of help is all that it takes for him to free himself. Well, we do have help on the higher densities, and they do care about us. And in many cases, we might be one little shard of some of these beings that are much more expansive on the higher densities. But we are perhaps one single ray of light off of a sun, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. This is a really beautiful example in a 3D kind of way, where this little girl is acting as an angel. She's not coming over and doing the work for this little guy, but she is providing encouragement. She's providing encouragement so this little guy can do it himself. Angels and guides are not there to do things for us. They're there to help us to understand our full potential. Now, this guy knows he can get out of a bogged down place, and he'll have more confidence moving forward in life after this.
And why do they not do things for us? Again, this is about a growth. And how are we going to grow? And in fact, some of us may be, again, a smaller piece of what we might perceive to be one of our guides. And that might be mind-blowing. Maybe some people can't get their mind around it. But that is the reality. Often, some of our greatest guides are us on a higher density.
Indeed.
As always, thanks for your support on Ko-Fi and Patreon. We couldn't do it without you guys. Much love. God bless and namaste.
Namaste.